This is going to be a complete guide to the current Garmin Approach golf watch range, starting with the entry-level Garmin Approach S12, which retails for $199, and moving on to the mid-range S42 for $299, and then the newest in the lineup, the premium Garmin Approach S70, which starts at $650. I've included any discounts and links to each of the watches down in the description below. But let's get started right now with the Garmin Approach S12. This is the Garmin S12, and you might be wondering whether Garmin's entry-level golf watch is the one for you. Yes, it's a good price for around £180 or $200, but what are you missing out on for the extra money? Well, you're gonna wanna watch all this video because I'm gonna run through what you need to know about this watch. Not just the specs, but what it's really like to use out on the golf course. What's good about it, what's not so great about it, and whether you should spend the extra money going up to the S42 or the S62, which I've got right here. If you're thinking about buying this watch, then I've included my affiliate links down below, along with any discount codes that I've currently got. If you find this video helpful, smash that like button and let's jump straight in. The Garmin S12 is very much an entry-level golf watch, and it's important to remember that right from the start. While you can link the phone via Bluetooth for some stat tracking, it doesn't pick up notifications from your phone, and there's no fitness tracking on this watch. It doesn't have a touch screen. Instead, you use these 4 buttons on the outside to navigate through the menus. Because the S12 has a pure focus on being a golf GPS watch, it can do a great job. In fact, I'm just going to say it up front, I like this golf watch. And if you can pick it up for less than retail price, I really like this golf watch, so long as you're happy that it's just a golf watch. For example, before I talk about any other features, or even the design and quality of the watch, I've got to talk about the battery life. While modern day smartwatches have incredible features and fantastic displays, my Series 6 needs a recharge around every 18 hours or so. Compare that to the S12, on its first full charge, it lasted me 30 days. After 18 holes of golf and 8 days on non-GPS mode, the S12 had tons of battery life left on it, whereas the S42 over the same period of time was down to 23%. One small negative is the way that the battery life is displayed, because you only get this small little logo on the screen there, so you never really know exactly what percentage of battery life you have left. The form factor of this watch is quite slim. There's not a huge battery hidden within this casing, so the reason in my opinion for that incredible battery life is mainly down to this screen. Now, compared to modern standards, it is a pretty basic screen with this black and white pixel display. As a screen on a golf watch, it does the job. It's nice and easy to read, and I didn't have any problems reading the data on the screen on a sunny day. If you're looking to use this watch off the golf course, well, it's not to my personal taste. It's pretty basic looking, and there's no backlight on it either. So if you're using this watch in complete darkness, you're not gonna be able to tell the time. You can use it as a regular watch if you want to. I'm not gonna. So the screen is pretty basic, but what about the rest of the watch? Well, it's really slim and lightweight, so if you've got skinny wrists like me, then you're not gonna have any problems whatsoever with this watch. The casing is quite plasticky. There's no getting around it really. And the rubber strap is also really quite thin, and there's a cheap plasticky buckle on the watch too. With that said, it does mean that the watch is incredibly light, which is a positive thing out on the golf course. Personally, I don't want some big, heavy, bulky thing distracting me during my golf swing. And to be fair, the S42, which is the next watch up in the Garmin range, is also quite plasticky. It has very, very similar straps as you can see here, and is also very lightweight, so you're not really missing out on too much by starting with the entry-level watch. While the overall watch face and bezel is round, the actual screen is square. The model of the watch is on the front of the screen, as well as the Garmin logo, and you have 4 plastic buttons on the corners to navigate the menus, and their function is imprinted on the plastic bezel. On the back you have very little, with just this circular metal part in the middle, and then the port for the proprietary charger as well. I would have preferred it if the charger was a universal USB rather than proprietary tech from Garmin, because if you lose it, well, you're gonna have to buy another one. And the cable itself isn't particularly long, which could be a little frustrating. Let's get into the real key stuff. What's this Garmin S12 really like to use out on the golf course? Firstly, I found it really easy to use this watch. It's pretty straightforward, no problems out of the box. Arriving at the course, you just select the play golf option, wait for it to find the GPS signal, and then select your course. You select if you want to keep score, you choose your tees, and off you go. The main display shows what hole you're on, what par it is, and the distance to the front, middle, and back of the green. It also shows you the shape of the green, as well as 2 little dots showing you where Garmin is calculating the front and the back. Because of the basic nature of the screen, you can't get an overall whole layout. So you're gonna need to think whether that's something you need for your game. There's also a big numbers mode, which you can turn on in the settings mid-round. If you need to know the time, you press the back button and it will take you back to the main watch face for a little bit. Or if you press the OK button to get to the menu, there's also a small display at the top showing the time. If there are any hazards on the hull, you can press down to scroll through those to get the distances to the front and back, as well as various layout yardages. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of the way Garmin shows hazards on this watch, and to be fair, it's exactly the same on the S42 as well, just in colour. It took me a little while to get used to the chart layout. Each of the hazards is labelled A, B, C, etc. and so on, with A being the closest one to you, and the placement of the dots on the chart represent whether it's on the left, middle or right of the hull. Now, if there's a lot of hazards on the hull, it can get a little bit confusing whether you're actually getting the distance to the hazard that you think you are. Talking of the yardages, I didn't have any problems with the distances that this watch was giving me. I even took it out at the same time as the S42 and the yardages were within 1 yard of each other the whole time. As you get closer to the green, you have the ability to move the flag to different locations on the green depending upon what you see in front of you. Now, personally, I've never actually really used that out on the golf course. Once you get to the green, the screen switches over until you enter your score, your number of putts, the location of your tee shot, and the number of penalty strokes. Now, these stats do get transferred into the Garmin app once you connect your phone to your watch, so you can view how you got on in that specific round and actually look at your stats over the course of time. While you're not getting massive amounts of detail with the stats you're getting from the S12, there's enough to get you started there, and if you really want to, you can spend the extra £200 and connect the CT10 club trackers to this watch as well. Now, if you've seen my ShotScope V3 review, and if you haven't, I'll include the link down in the description below, one thing that really bugged me with that watch is that you cannot check your score midway through the round, or at least you couldn't at the time I filmed the review. I don't know whether they've updated their software since. With the Garmin S12, you've not got that problem. You just click into the menu, scroll down to scorecard, and you can see your current score and scroll through your scores on other holes. You can also edit your scores if you need to, or add one in if you missed one out. From the menu, you can also view the sunrise and sunset times, but personally, I've never really bothered using that feature out on the course. Another key feature is that you can also track your distances of your shots with this watch. Now, with the S42, in terms of the tee shots, it has a really nice feature that it always tracks your tee shot. It comes up at the top of the screen. With the S12, unfortunately, you've not got that feature. Instead, what you need to do is scroll through the menu, select measure shot, and then start walking towards your ball. If I could have made a slight improvement to this watch, I would have requested that that feature, which I use quite a lot, was on a shortcut button or something like that. Maybe if you held the red button for 3 seconds, it automatically jumps you to the measure shot mode. Garmin, if you're listening and can do that, I think that'd be a great little feature. Hopefully you can see why I really like this watch. And if you can get it for a good price, I think it does everything that I really want it to do. And those few negative points that it does have, I can forgive it because of the price. Before I talk about the other Garmin watches in the range, let's quickly mention the ShotScope V3. I'll link to my full review of this watch down in the description below, as it's great value for money at just under £200, considering you also get 16 club trackers with it as well, which gives you a ton of data on your golf game. However, it's not perfect. As I mentioned before, you can't view your score mid-round with the watch. It doesn't have the capability to handle the Stableford point scoring system, and personally, I found the shot tracking to be a little unreliable. If you can take the time to really nail down and make sure that your shots are all tracked accurately, then this is a really good alternative option. However, I just find it a lot more frustrating to use compared to the Garmin S12. I wouldn't want to wear either of these watches off the course, but between the two, I definitely prefer to wear the S12. So should you spend more money and upgrade to the more expensive S42? Well, if the only reason you want to do so is so that you can get a watch that you can wear on and off the course, personally, I'm not entirely sure whether I'd even do that. Yes, by comparison, the S42 does look better and it has got a color screen as well, but for me, I still wouldn't necessarily want to wear this off the course. I'd rather wear my iWatch or one of my mechanical watches. That's just my personal preference. Yes, you can move the flagstick to wherever you want it on the green with this watch, and as I mentioned before, it does automatically track the distance of your tee shots. But as a golf watch, that's pretty much it. The S42 will connect to your phone via Bluetooth and give you notifications, but it's certainly not a smartwatch. And the screen quality is just nowhere near as good as a modern iWatch. Let me know down in the comments if you want to see a more direct comparison of these two watches. If you decide to go all the way up to the Garmin S42, well, now there are some significant differences between these watches both on and off the golf course. On the golf course, you have a smart Caddy system, which means that the watch learns your distances for each of your clubs and gives you suggestions as to what you should play. It also has the ability to give you the direction of the flag on a blind shot. It can tell you the contours of the greens, give you full hole layouts as well, not just the shape of the greens, and a few other bits too. In terms of smartwatch features, it has heart rate and blood O2 level monitors, can track your fitness, your sleep patterns, your stress levels, and you can even connect a bank card to it and use contactless pay with it as well. It has a ceramic screen on the side and a slightly thicker strap too, but all these additional features come at the additional cost. This one retails in the UK for around £480 or $500 in the US. That's a chunky price difference between these two watches. And if you've already got an iWatch, you might prefer just sticking with that. Yes, this has really good battery life, up to 15 hours on standby mode, but it's not nearly as sleek, and personally I think I prefer the design of an iWatch. So it's not necessarily a straightforward decision. If you're looking for a golf watch that does all the basic features that you really need out on the course, then the S12 is the one to get. I hope you're finding this information helpful. Please tap the like button if you are. And next up, we have the mid-tier Garmin Approach S42. This is the brand new Garmin S42 GPS golf watch. Now, it currently retails in the UK for around £270, and in this video today, I'm going to give you my full honest review. I've used the watch several times out on the golf course, so I'm going to tell you how it works, as well as what I like about it, and a few things that I don't like about it as well. If you do think that this is the watch for you, then I have included my affiliate links down in the description below. But for now, let's jump straight in. I've already done an unboxing video of this watch, so if you're interested in that, then I'll include the link down below. But in terms of the actual overall looks of this watch, then first of all, my first impressions were that I quite liked it, to be honest. I think it's got quite a premium look about it, but you'd hope that because it's not exactly inexpensive at £270. The strap itself is actually quite thin, I would say, when you look at it, and it feels an okay quality, but perhaps I was thinking that I'd get something a little bit thicker with the strap, but it is just a simple buckle system that's, you know, pretty much been on watches since the beginning of time. Did I just make a time joke about a watch? And I didn't even mean it. Boom. Something that did surprise me with the watch was actually it does feel quite lightweight. I was expecting it to have a little bit more weight to it, feel a little bit more substantial. It just feels plasticky on the back there. You've got this plastic back material, and just thought it'd be a little bit heavier. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but just something to note. The watch is a full color display touchscreen, and we'll come onto that in a little bit. And also you've got this single button there, which gets you to your menus and is your back button. And it's got a nice little bit of red color to the outside of it as well. Now the watch is available, I think, in 3 different colors. So you can have a white version, and I think there's a rose gold version as well. But personally, I prefer this black gunmetal version. What you'll probably see on the watch face itself is that you've got the name of the watch, the Approach S42, but you've also got 1 to 18 around the outside of the watch. And that's because there's a little digital ticker that goes around the outside, so it's really quick and easy to see what hole it is that you're on. When you are using this off the course, then you've got plenty of different watch faces to choose from, and actually I really like the look and design of some of them. It actually makes it look more like a watch compared to a GPS watch. You might have seen on the back of the watch there, you've got the charging port on the back. Now that's my first kind of gripe with the watch really, in that it uses a proprietary system. It's not USB. Now, I've got loads of USB cables dotted about all over the place, in my car, upstairs, downstairs, everywhere. What I've only got is one of these that comes in the box. So if I lose that charger, I'm gonna have to buy a new one. So that's just a little bit of a frustration. So what's this watch actually like to use out on the golf course? Well, I've got to say, it's pretty easy, to be honest. It's nice and simple. It will probably take you 1 round just to get used to it, but nothing much more than that really. It is pretty self-explanatory, given the fact that most of it is touchscreen. When you very first use the watch out on the golf course, then you've got to bear in mind that it does take quite a while for it to find the GPS signal. Initially, I thought that the watch was actually broken just because it was taking so long. It certainly took around kind of like 5 minutes or so. But once it picks it up that first time, it never took that long again out on the golf course. Once you get out on the course and actually start playing your round, then you can see that you've got the 3 main kind of numbers. So that's the front, the middle, and the back number to the green. And also what you can do with the watch is if you tap on the green, then you can move the pin about as well. So you can get a specific yardage to where you think the flag is when you actually see it on the green. Now, personally, I don't really use that. Generally, I just kind of play to the back yardage of a green anyway, but it's there if you want it. The watch comes with over 40,000 courses preloaded onto it. Once you've hit a shot, the watch does have some tracking capabilities to it, and so you can see the distance of your previous shot. It comes up as a little banner at the top of the watch there. It's nice and easy to see. The watch can also tell you distances to the front and to the back of various hazards on the course. What you do is kind of swipe down on the watch face or click on the bottom button as well, and then you get this kind of graph approach. You can see here that you've got all these different coloured lines, and it tells you to the front and to carry various hazards as you go along, and it'll also give you your yardages to lay up as well. Now that takes a little bit of getting used to, kind of certainly a couple of rounds, but once you get used to it, then you're fine with it and it gives you those yardages, but it's not necessarily the most intuitive way of showing that information. There's also other things that the watch can tell you out on the course, such as sunrise and sunset. And personally, I've never really bothered using that feature at all, and I don't think I ever will do, as well as other screens such as how long your round's taken. Once you get to the green, the watch face changes and you can enter the number of putts that you've taken, and you enter your score for the hole as well as any penalties that you might have taken. So the watch can actually keep track of your score, and you can choose to set it up on a Stapleford or on a stroke play scoring system. Now, interestingly, there is some functionality to give you some statistics as well. However, with this being the S42 and not the S62, the statistics and the stats that it keeps is somewhat limited. Now you can, if you want, buy the additional shot trackers that go in the end of your clubs from Garmin, which cost around another £200. But for me, when this watch is already costing $270, I didn't really fancy spending another £200 on those. Using the watch, I've got to say that I was really impressed with it out on the course. It's nice and simple to use, did everything that I wanted it to do, pretty much for the most part, although we'll come on to that in a little bit. And I didn't have any problems reading the information or accessing the information that I wanted to. The screen was plenty bright enough, and the colour screen is a nice feature. Although, when you talk about the screen, given that I use the latest iWatch, I've got a Series 6 here, then you can really notice the difference between an OLED screen and what is this colour LCD screen on here. One of my good friends described it as looking a bit like their daughter's VTech toy. I think that's a little bit harsh, but certainly it's not the most high-def screen that you're ever going to see, but it does the job. You don't necessarily need it to be that crisp and that clear, and I could see it in all light conditions out on the course. The battery on the S42 is actually really impressive, and you can get up to 15 hours golf usage according to Garmin. Now, I've got to say that I used it for 2 rounds generally, and I could easily get 2 rounds before it needed charge. I could push at 3 rounds potentially, but I wouldn't really want to do that because I wouldn't want it to run out of charge towards the end of my round. But for me personally, 2 rounds of golf, plus having plenty of battery remaining to have a few days on standby as well, is plenty enough for me. After the round, you can connect your watch to the Garmin app and you can upload the data onto your phone. And then that means that you've got some stats and some figures, and you'll be able to track and record them as you play golf. Now, as I mentioned, they are kind of limited really, only really kind of detecting your tee shots as well as your approach stops. And also you can't specifically record bunker shots on the watch, it automatically picks them up. And I found that that's a little bit hit and miss as well. Now, if you're looking for full-blown stats, then to be honest, you're probably going to have to buy the extra club trackers that cost a couple of £100. And in that case, you're probably going to want to consider something like the ShotScope V3 as well, which is considerably cheaper at only £180. So if you are interested, I've done a full review of that GPS watch as well. I'll include my link down below. Generally, I like using this watch out on the golf course, but there are a few things that kind of bug me about the watch as well, and I think you should know before deciding whether or not you want to buy this watch. Now, I've already mentioned about the proprietary charger on the back, which is a little bit annoying, but another thing I wanted to talk about is actually linking this to your phone, because one of the features of the watch is that you can get your notifications from your phone and they come up on your watch. Now, that potentially sounds like a really good feature, so long as you've got a phone that's compatible, and I use an iPhone and it works absolutely fine. Well, I say it works absolutely fine in that, yes, I get all of my notifications from my phone onto my watch, and there's a vibrate alert that kind of lets me know when they pop up. However, I get all my notifications, literally everything. Every single notification will ping up from my phone onto my watch. And for the life of me, I cannot figure out how to reduce it, because I just want to know my text messages and my phone calls. I don't care about my Clubhouse notifications, and I don't care that my watch needs an update later that night. However, I cannot figure out a way to fine tune them. I don't think it's part of the phone. I don't think it's part of the watch. I just don't think you can do it. Your notifications are either on or they're off. My bigger concern with the watch is just generally its price point. At £280, it's not exactly cheap. Now, yes, you have got the S62, which comes in at a couple of £100 more, but you get tons more features with that watch. I mean, like a serious amount of features. Things like heart rate tracking, you get a virtual caddy, you get loads of stuff with it, and it's made to a higher quality and has a bigger screen as well. Now, personally, I'm not interested in that watch because I've got little tiny wrists and it would just look absolutely enormous on my wrist. But there are a lot of people out there who would be interested in the additional features and happy with the bigger size of it. Now, you've also got the Garmin S12, which again is brand new from Garmin and is the little baby brother of this watch. It's the entry-level version. But the S12 retails for £180, so around £90 cheaper than this one. And in reality, there's probably a lot of golfers out there who will be perfectly happy with the S12. Yes, that one only comes with a black and white screen. It doesn't have the color screen. Now, personally, I wouldn't use the S12 as an everyday watch because it just looks a bit chunky and plasticky and a little bit basic. And while this does look much nicer, and actually I'd be pretty comfortable using this as an everyday watch if I wanted to, I'm not gonna because I've got an iWatch or I've got other normal watches that I'd wear. So I wouldn't choose to go out of my way and wear this as my everyday watch. And then you've got to consider the fact that there's the previous version, the S40, which is still available to buy, again at a significant discount. At the moment, I can see the silver version for around £180 on sale and the black version for around £250. And the only real difference between the two is that this does have the increased battery life, but pretty much the majority, in fact the vast majority of the functionality is the same. So, is it worth buying the S42? If I was making the decision today after buying the S42, I would definitely want to try and check out the S40 first. If there's still some of them available at around £100 discount to the S42, then I'd probably be tempted to go for that instead. I'm not knocking the S42. I actually really like the watch. I like the features, I like the design, and I like how easy it is to use. But if you're going to look into be saving around £100 and you're not really losing out that much, feels like a bit of a no-brainer to me. Another thing that I haven't even mentioned is the fact that I've got the iWatch, and it means I could download one of the many golf apps that you can use for the watch. And then you've got to start to thinking, well, if this is £280 and this one cost me £350, you're actually getting a lot more watch for your money with the iWatch compared to the Garmin. For example, I've got the heart rate sensor in here, I've got the ECG sensor, I've got so much more functionality connecting it to my phone compared to this one. I've got all my running stuff, I can go swimming in it, and the screen is just infinitely better on the iWatch compared to the Garmin. So again, that's another consideration. Now it's time for the big dog, the premium tier Garmin Approach S70. If you're still watching, why not consider subscribing to my channel? And if you want to receive the best online golf deals directly into your inbox every month, then make sure you sign up to my newsletter, link down in the description. If you're looking to buy the most advanced, feature-rich golf watch, then you should go out and get yourself the Garmin Approach S70. But there's still aspects of this new S70 that I find disappointing and outright frustrating, which means that you might be better off maybe buying a different watch or potentially sticking with the one that you've already got. So in this review, I'm going to give you my honest thoughts. I've worn it continuously for over a week to test the real world battery life of this watch. I've played multiple rounds of golf, I've tracked workouts, swimming sessions, my sleep patterns, and much more. Now, if you want an in-depth look as to how this watch actually works, then I've already posted a video showing all of the golf features and settings that this watch has to offer, which I'll link to in the description. And if you decide this watch is for you, then I've included any links and exclusive discounts so you can pick this watch up for less than retail price down in the description below. If you're watching this video, then you probably already know the two main new features of the S70 compared to the previous S62. The new AMOLED touchscreen display, as well as the case size. You can now choose between the standard 47mm case, which is what the previous S62 had, or you can get this new smaller case, which comes in at 42mm. Now, as someone with slightly smaller, dainty wrists, the new 42mm is a godsend for me. When I was testing the S62, I did feel that the 47mm case was just too big for my 7-inch wrists, and I never really felt comfortable enough to wear it as a daily driver watch off the course. So kudos to Garmin for actually giving golfers a choice between a smaller version and that 47mm now. Although the smaller option is £50 or $50 less, it does have a slightly smaller screen, around 2.5mm, to fit into that smaller case size. It also has a smaller battery and has a slightly different design on the buttons. Now, I didn't have any issues with the smaller touchscreen. I found it absolutely fine to use out on the golf course and for everyday use. And I'm more than happy to sacrifice the 5 hours of GPS usage compared to the larger version for the sake of having a watch that actually fits me better. But there is currently one significant downside to having the choice of different sizes. The smaller version doesn't come in black. It only comes in either this grey and green version or a white version. And really, black is probably going to be the most popular universal colour. And if you want to get the bigger watch, then you haven't got a choice at all in colours. You can only currently get it in black. I did reach out to Garmin to ask whether there are any plans to get different colourways for the different sizes, but at the time of recording this video, they couldn't confirm. If you watched my review of the previous model, the Garmin S62, then you'll know that one of my main criticisms was of the screen. It was just dated compared to modern current smartwatches. So it's brilliant to see that Garmin have taken that on board and have added the new AMOLED touchscreen display, which does now bring it in line with your modern smartwatches such as a current Apple Watch. It really is a cracking display. It has vivid colours and great contrast. I didn't have any problems viewing the information on the watch out in the brightest of sunshine. The touchscreen is also nice and responsive. Perhaps not as snappy as a current Apple Watch, but good enough. Overall, the quality of the watch feels all right. It's about where it should be priced. It feels much nicer quality compared to the lower tier S42 watch, but also doesn't feel as luxury as the much more expensive Mark range, which then has the titanium case. The plastic casing on this one is fine, and the rubber straps feel nice enough quality. Nothing particularly special. They are removable, but you will need to get a tool to actually get the straps out like a normal watch, but you can put Garmin's replacement quick release straps on this watch too. Now the screen itself is Gorilla Glass. It's not Garmin's Sapphire Crystal. The S70 also has a ceramic bezel with a few little etchings on it. Now the watch does use Garmin's proprietary connector at the back, and that just snaps on. It's not a magnet connector. And it does now come with a USB-C connection on the end, not a USB-A. So if you've not bought any tech for quite a while, you might have to go out and buy yourself a new USB adapter to actually be able to use that charging cable. Garmin are claiming some impressive battery life figures with the new S70. For the 47mm, they're claiming up to 21 days in smartwatch mode or 20 hours battery life in GPS mode. And for the smaller 42mm version, they're claiming up to 14 days or 15 hours respectively. But what does that mean in terms of real world usage? Well, I charged this 42mm version up 100% and I wore it until the battery ran out. And for me, it lasted just over 8.5 days, which I think is pretty impressive, especially when you compare it to something like my Gen 6 Apple Watch, which will only last me around 2 days at a maximum. During that time, I had the watch set to the maximum level of brightness. I didn't have the always on display turned on, and I also had the gesture mode turned on, which means that when you're not looking at the watch, the screen turns off, and when you do flip it up to look at it, the screen then quickly turns back on. I played 18 holes of golf, and I tracked a 30-minute indoor bike workout session where the watch was actually broadcasting my heart rate to the bike to show me on the screen, and I wore it every single night to track my sleep. I like to think that that's a pretty normal use case, so you can get a good idea of how the battery life lasted in those conditions. You could probably add a few more days battery life onto it if you're getting the larger 47mm version, and you could probably take a few days off if you were going to put in another extra 18 holes of golf, or perhaps a few more outdoor runs or bike rides. And if you're going to turn on the always on display, then of course that's going to eat into the battery life even more. Wearing just this watch for those 8 days, it did make me miss my other watches. I've got a rather modest mechanical watch collection, but I do enjoy wearing different watches all of the time. So as much as you can wear this type of watch as your daily driver, or perhaps as your only watch, personally, I wouldn't. Now that's not the fault of this S70. I had the same issue with my Apple Watch. The health tracking information that you can get from these kind of watches is really, really useful and interesting. You can feel a little bit guilty if you're not wearing the watch, and then you missed out on tracking those extra steps or that additional flight of stairs that you climbed. Of course, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy the new S70. It just means that that's a factor that you should probably consider before spending what is quite a significant amount of money, upwards of £600 here in the UK for this smaller version. It may have all the features under the sun, but will you get the most out of it? And will it actually make you happy? This video all of a sudden sounds quite deep, and I've not even talked about the golf features of this watch, which are clearly the main focus of the Approach S70. This is a golf watch at heart. And as a golf watch, I love it for two main reasons. Firstly, it has everything that you could possibly want to help you play and potentially improve at golf, and it does nearly all of those things really, really well. Just to highlight some of the key upgrades to the golf features of this watch, to complement that new, lovely, crisp and bright looking screen, it's got updated graphics on this watch. So you've now got really specific details as to the trees, and those trees now actually show some shadows under them on the whole layout, which just makes this watch a much nicer thing to look at. It also has an improved auto caddy feature, which learns your game and then provides a suggestion for which club you should hit to get what it thinks on a probability basis is the best outcome while you're playing on the course. Now it's now going to factor in not only what club you should hit, but it also factors in environmental conditions such as the wind, as well as the air pressure, as well as the slope yardage too. The new whole layout view also provides now a helpful little grid which shows you the likely dispersion of the club that you're going to hit, so you can easily see what hazards you might be bringing into play or avoiding based on where that grid is positioned. Now for me, I'm topping a lot of my tee shots at the moment, so in reality, that grid should probably be a lot larger. Don't forget the auto caddy feature was present on the S62, along with the majority of the other golf features found on the new S70. It's just that they've been slightly tweaked and enhanced on the new watch. Another example of an improvement is the play light feature. So now not only can you tap on the left hand side and it will quickly change between the true yardage and the playing light yardage, but you can also swipe on that left hand side and then you can see a breakdown of what is being factored into that play light feature. So it takes into account the slope as well as the wind conditions, but it also has a little barometer on the inside of this watch, so it now factors in the air pressure as well. Now that's a great example of the way that this watch is almost excessive in the features that it provides. Don't get me wrong, that improves the accuracy of the play light yardage, but do you really need it? You can't use the majority of the helpful features in this watch if you're playing in a competition, so really all those features are just adding to your game when you're playing socially. So if they help you enjoy the game more, then that's fantastic, they've done their job, and you can probably justify the cost of this watch. If you want to track club data, then the watch can detect when you hit a shot, and then you select which club you actually hit when you played it. I found the sensitivity of that feature to be pretty good, although it did miss at least a couple of shots while I was out on the course, certainly in terms of small little chips and putts. Now you can pair the additional Garmin CT10 tags, which cost around £200, but that's just something in addition that you're gonna have to pay for what is already an expensive golf watch. I've seen a few people comment on my previous videos that Garmin could do with actually overhauling their golf app, which connects to this watch. And looking at it, yeah, they probably could. It does look perhaps a little bit dated, and it doesn't give you a huge amount of detail in terms of your golf stats and your performance, but it does record enough. You can easily see your scores and your scorecards. You can actually then click in, and if you're selecting which clubs you hit, it'll give you a little on-screen layout of each of the holes and where you hit your shots. And for the majority of golfers out there, I think that's probably gonna be enough. Yes, there are watches that can give you a much more detailed breakdown of how you play on the course, but for me, I'm happy with the level of information that I'm getting. Now, if you want more detailed information of all of the golf features, then make sure you check out my full in-depth walkthrough of this watch, which I've included the link to down below. One small gripe that I've got in terms of the golf features of this watch is that you no longer have a long list of the hazards on each hole. If you want to get yardage information too, as well as to carry hazards, you now have to click on the whole layout view and then scroll through with a little up or down arrow on the watch face to then go through and find the hazards that you want to see the yardages for. If you're playing a long par 4 or par 5 and there's a lot of hazards, then you're going to be sat there tapping quite a few times as you scroll through all those yardages. Now yes, you can use the touchscreen and select specific points on the watch, but it would be nice, I think, just to have that feature where you can quickly look and have all of the details of the hazards on that hole. But rest assured, I'm comfortable in saying that this is the best golf watch that I have ever used. Noting that I haven't yet used the new Garmin Mark Golfer Gen 2 watch, but that costs just shy of £2,000 here in the UK. You can still buy the Garmin Mark Gen 1 for around £1,700, but I'd say that this is actually still a better experience. In terms of activity and fitness tracking, this watch follows on from its predecessors and gives you a huge range of activity activities to choose from. The vast majority of people who actually own this watch will probably only use a minority of the activities available to track, such as running, cycling, and gym workouts. And it gives really good information when you're doing those activities. But if you want to do something more exotic like cross-country skiing or snowboarding, then this watch is going to have you covered still. And if you are looking to track health and fitness data for ultra marathons or something extreme like that, then this probably isn't going to be the watch for you anyway. You're probably going to want to get something more dedicated like the new Epix Gen 2 Pro that can still be used for golf but have a larger battery life and a larger touchscreen display with more buttons and lots more features dedicated to those kind of activities. Now, if you're looking to get back into the gym or perhaps even just start some gym activities, this watch does have the ability to actually track your workouts and even provide some little screens showing you how the exercises should look. I don't think that's a feature that many people are going to use, but it's nice to know that it's in there. I think more users are likely to benefit from the health tracking features on a day-to-day basis with this watch. As a quick recap, it has a heart rate monitor as well as a blood O2 sensor and can be used to track your sleep patterns as well as your body battery and energy levels. After the first couple of days of usage, I didn't really use the body battery feature all that much. If I felt tired, then I don't really need a watch telling me you feel tired. I did quite like the sleep tracking information that can be provided if you wear this watch to bed, and I found that this smaller 42mm version was just about small enough to feel comfortable wearing to sleep. I wouldn't want to wear the larger 47mm version to bed. I don't think my wife would really appreciate me nudging her in the back during her sleep with the watch. After wearing this watch to bed for over a week, I didn't really feel the need to continue to do so. I didn't desperately need the data that it was telling me. It was certainly interesting in terms of breaking down my REM and my light sleep, but as I mentioned before, I felt it would almost be too easy to get caught in the trap of feeling like you had to wear this watch to continuously get that information. To be honest, that's just not a loop I really want to be in. And for everything that this watch does well, there's still a few things that I'm disappointed with and I find frustrating, which means that this isn't a no-brainer choice. Just because it's the best golf watch doesn't mean that it's the best smartwatch and automatically worth the price. For example, if you already have a relatively current Apple Watch, well, this can already do pretty much everything that the Garmin S70 can. And while it has a significantly worse battery life compared to the Garmin, it does have some much better quality of life and usability features that make it worth considering. For example, when you play music on your phone with an Apple Watch, the screen will automatically pop up to give you the music controls. With the Garmin, that's not the case. You have to go into the menu and then actually select the music control setting. And another example is that Apple has Apple Pay, which is a seamless way to pay for stuff using contactless payment. Now, Garmin have their version, Garmin Pay, but here in the UK, it doesn't actually work with the vast majority of high street banks. At the time of filming this video, Santander is the only high street bank compatible with Garmin Pay. There's several other challenger banks, but they're not nearly as commonly used here in the UK. I can't speak for how integrated Garmin Pay is in other countries, so you'll have to check that out on the Garmin website. And it's not just Apple users that are seeing benefits over the Garmin S70. While you can use the S70 to answer or reject phone calls, you can't actually use it to talk on the phone, and you only get notifications that pop up. You can't reply to text messages. And the ability to control notification pop-ups on the S70 is frustratingly lacking if you are an Apple phone user. If you're an Android phone user, then you actually have a lot more customization in terms of the app notifications that pop up on the S70. You can manage those settings in the Garmin Connect app. However, if you are an Apple phone user, then you only have the ability to turn on or off your notifications for your phone calls, your text messages, and all of your apps. Now, I find that really frustrating because I don't want notifications for all of my apps. Really, I only want notifications to pop up on my watch for my WhatsApp. That's it. Now, it does have the ability to tell me that I have WhatsApp messages because there's a little screen on that notification bar which looks like the WhatsApp symbol, but I have no ability to control that I only get WhatsApp notifications. So, should you buy this watch? Well, for some of you, yes, and for others, probably no. If you want the best premium golf range currently available and don't want to spend the money on the luxury mark range, well, this is the golf watch to buy. If you either make use of the majority of the features available in this watch, or you're happy paying for them knowing that they're in there, although you're probably never actually going to use them, then this watch is simply a must buy. And don't forget that I've included any exclusive discount codes so you can pick this up currently for less than retail down in the description below. If you already own the Garmin Approach S62 and you're happy with it, then there's probably not really much of a reason to upgrade, unless of course you want the latest thing. The new features on the S70 are an improvement, and the screen is a massive improvement, but they're not essential features. This is still just an incremental upgrade to the previous watch. I wouldn't call this one necessarily a game changer. And the same goes for Apple Watch users. If you're currently using that as a golf and smartwatch, and you're happy with it, well, the Apple Watch can pretty much do the majority of things that the S70 can. It just has a significantly worse battery life. If you've been happy using it on a day-to-day basis, you're probably already charging it every couple of days, so you're used to that pattern. Do you really need to spend the extra money and have this additional watch too? That depends upon how much you like to have the latest and best tech. If you like the look of the S70 but want to save a few $100s, then check out my full review of the previous top-tier model, the Garmin Approach S62, which you can now pick up for considerably less money.